for a moment, you folks on Facebook Live get an exclusive. Okay, that should be plenty. Put the music here someplace. And here it is. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary, sequestered at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. And it is episode 80. Still a social episode. You're going to see how social. I got like 4 people to talk to. March 29th, 2020. Report from the Hoods, Volume 2. Going to find out what's going on out there. I'm Gary Pierce. I am host of the show. I am old and vulnerable. I guess I should mention the Triangle Talk Show is a podcast and a webcast about stuff that's going on in the Triangle. Sometimes I get into a little left-leaning politics. I'm going to avoid most of that this time, I think. And you can catch the website, triangletalkshow.com. We're on Facebook, Triangle Talk Show. We are on YouTube. This is a video program as well as an audio program. You can see it on YouTube. And until I get 100 subscribers, I have just a goofy, unpronounceable YouTube URL. So just go to the triangletalkshow.com and push the little YouTube icon, and you can see where the show is on YouTube. Okay, so this is Report from the Neighborhoods, and there are the neighbors. Oh, let me turn your audio on, neighbors. We got 4 people on the line right now. That looks like we're going to have 5.
Yep, we got our teacher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got Heather, who is a teacher and a last-minute recruit to the show. So she's trying to get her Skype going. Hey, Heather. Welcome to the Triangle Talk Show.
Hello.
You're just in time. Apparently, I can only have four windows open at once. Apparently, I'm not sure why that is. Skype keeps changing things on me. So let me introduce everybody. In the upper left-hand corner is Raul, and Raul, you are on the south side of Cary, I believe you said.
That's right.
Okay, and I recruited you from Reddit, where you are. Okay, what was your Reddit handle?
Rental Gore.
Rental Gore. By way of introducing people, before we get into the topic, explain that.
Sure. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, I was playing video games with my friends and needed a name for my Xbox Live account. Went on an online name generator, and this is what's come up. And so I've had it for 20 years. I have no idea what it means, but unfortunately, it's stuck with me. Okay.
So you get to have it, and you don't know why.
Yep. Don't know why.
Okay, to your left, screen right, is a rerun from the last neighborhood episode. Brendan, who I guess you just concatenated your name into your Reddit handle.
The short version of that is in the late 90s, universities handed out usernames based on your name. And so it was first initial, middle initial, and the first 6 of your last name. And it was always unique, and I never had to fight anybody else to get a username on anything. And so I've just stuck with it. It's really easy, and just keep on using it.
Okay. So it's not an attempt to stay anonymous. Just
not at all.
Just a name. Donald, you were tinfoil poet. Explain yourself.
Well, I'm a writer, poet specifically, and I don't know, I came up with it in college, and I thought it was a fun, quirky thing to have. So
that's who you became on Reddit, and now you're world famous. And what part of town are you in?
Right now, I live in Holly Springs.
Okay, so we're branching out from Cary. For a while, it was the Cary talk show, and now we're branching out a little bit. Jen is in the lower left corner on your screen. We're going to keep Jen anonymous as far as where she is on Reddit. And where are you located?
I'm in Chapel Hill, right on the border of Chapel Hill and Carborough.
So you're winning the long distance award. Well, I don't know.
No, nope. Wait till you get to Heather.
Okay. Okay, and Heather is up in the corner. I'm not sure why. For some reason, I appear to only be able to put 4 people in this thing as full screen. So let's see who will replace you from Brennan for a minute. And you are a last minute recruit. I had a teacher on the line to talk about what is going to go on in education as people are going online and the schools are all closed. And she was not available at the last minute. And so Jen recruited you, Heather, so you don't have to explain a Reddit handle, but where are you from?
I'm located in Efland, North Carolina, which is just outside of Hillsborough. And I am not currently a teacher. I just finished my degree, but I do work with several schools in the area, and I was just hired as a teacher for kindergarten in a new public charter in Efland.
Okay, so you're involved in education, and you'll be back at it.
Yes.
Okay, and Jen, you have been teaching in the past, and now you're in the nanny business.
Yes, I left teaching and I have joined the nanny world, where I have fewer children to take care of and get paid more for it.
Rule, what kind of work do you do?
So I'm a public transit professional. Been doing that for 20 plus years. I help cities design public transit networks, buses, trains, things like that. And more recently have been focused on kind of developing new forms of business, sort of like Uber and Lyft and others, but more designed towards public transit and carrying more people, reducing congestion, and helping the environment.
Okay, so you wanted to get on the discussion that I had on the previous show with Brendan about public transit, mass transit. Did you listen to that?
You know, I didn't, and I am sorry. Should have done my homework.
The gist of it was we don't have light rail here, and people say, well, we are too spread out for light rail. And my point was, and we'll find out now from a professional whether my point is correct or not. My point was we won't have density until we have light rail, concentrated public transit, and because that will attract the density. So it's not a chicken and egg. One comes first. Am I anywhere near the ballpark?
You are not just in the ballpark, but you hit it out of the ballpark. That's exactly right. Every single network I've ever worked on, every study I've ever seen shows that density comes along the corridors that you put mass transit in. And every $1 that you invest in mass transit results in $4 in economic benefit.
And so you're probably going nuts watching the Triangle area not do light rail.
I one of the interesting things that came out of most recent elections was a tax measure to support light rail, and then we decided to stick our feet in our mouth completely and get rid of it, and it's an embarrassment. And I wish that there are things that we can do to improve the alignment and the corridor and things like that where it can be brought back to life.
Jen, I saw you praying for light rail.
Yeah. Orange County and Durham County repeatedly, every time it's on the ballot, we always say yes. And even if it was just in between Chapel Hill and Durham, it would reduce congestion and increase throughput so much. It would be such a help.
And you got close. It was Duke University that messed it up for their medical center?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they had legitimate reasons and legitimate concerns with sensitive medical equipment and vibrations from trains, but there were options and they weren't interested in looking at them. And that part I don't quite understand.
Yeah, because Duke is usually pretty public spirited, aren't they? All right. Donald, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So right now I'm basically a site manager at a self-storage place. While I'm getting the whole writing stuff together, and work with some of the local small businesses coming up with like pop culture based content for them. Little tit for tat. So that's pretty much it, I guess.
Okay. And let's see, what else was I going to ask you? I was looking for a name that describes people who live in the Triangle. I love using the name for people who live in Charlotte. I call them charlatans. They don't call themselves that. I think they call themselves charlatans. So I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about people who live in the triangle with one triangle-based word. So I'm going to come up with Triangularians. Is that, too big a mouthful? Does that sound good?
I've always used triangulites.
Triangulites.
Like Israelites, but triangulites.
Aren't those the things in caves that could fall on your head and kill you?
Stalactite?
Yeah.
Right. That's what it is.
Well, the triangle-shaped ones are the triangle. Never mind, that's too big a reach. All right. We are all now living under statewide restrictions, not just county restrictions. And the statewide restrictions go until April 31st. And I was asking if any of you guys are an expert. And Jen, I think you are going to claim that you are an expert in the restrictions because you got to pay careful attention to them. You're actually one who has to go out into the world and interact with people. So what are we all facing?
For most people, provided that they were behaving themselves before now, it is no change at all. But for everybody else, you're actually really, for real this time, because you could get a ticket, going to have to stay away from people when you go outside.
It's a class 2 misdemeanor, right?
Yes, it's a class 2 misdemeanor. Every law enforcement body has said they don't want to have to write those tickets, but they are empowered to write those tickets. And if it comes to it, I have no doubt that our enforcers will enforce.
I think I've seen the stories that the police departments don't want to stop you. They don't want to get that close to you, but I guess sometimes they'll have to. Raul, I'm kind of surprised to see stories from other areas and even around here that the buses are still running. Public transit is running. I guess it has to, but what do you do?
Well, yeah. So there's a few things. So our biggest network that we operate is in Boston. We run the commuter rail in Boston. Carries something in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 million people a year on heavy trains and things like that. So there's a few things that we put in, and this has actually gone back now almost 3 weeks. We've taped off individual seats, so only one person can sit in a row. But the big reason is medical professionals, healthcare professionals, first responders still use public transit to get to their jobs. There's still a whole service economy, essential workers who don't have access to cars and can't afford an Uber and a Lyft still need to have public transportation. So it is an essential service. And it's something that it's hurting right now. But in cities like Reno, where we're operating, we're actually seeing more people riding on certain corridors than we saw before the shutdown.
I was going to ask if you're having any trouble maintaining the social distancing on the various vehicles because they're going to be more lightly traveled, but apparently, at least in Reno, that's not the case. No,
I'd say the numbers we saw on Friday is that overall public transportation ridership is down about 93% across the country. And think about this: we carry about 1 billion people per month on public transit modes in the U.S. alone. It's down 93%. So it's still a decent number of people that are riding, but the social distancing has not been as difficult. The bigger issue really is the workforce. They're having to face a public that may be infected, may have issues with getting to their own health care. And so we are that's our number one concern right now is our employees, which are bus drivers, mechanics, people who clean the vehicles. And so it's a bit nerve-wracking. We've got 6,000 employees across the U.S. And so we've already had about 6 positives in our company.
Okay. Here in the Triangle, I understand that most of the bus systems, maybe all of them now, are offering rides for free. And that's a safety measure so that you don't have to interact with the fare box and the driver. And unless you need the front door for some reason of mobility, accessibility, I use the back door. and then, stay away from people and find yourself an isolated seat. So that's what's going on here. No more than 10.
But please stay home. Just stay home. If you don't have to leave, stay home. Because those of us who can't stay home, we don't want to die because you decided you wanted to go have a fun jaunt.
Oh yeah. I've got some stories for that one.
Okay. Well, tell us one. Start with a good one.
Okay. So I'm as I said, right now I'm working as a self-storage site manager. Somehow that's classified us as essential. And the company I work for basically refuses to close the office down. So apparently, with nothing else to do, everyone wants to go to their storage site. So you come in, you ask them, hey, stand where the X is, and they'll have a meltdown about 75% of the time. And it's why are you here? And it's like, well, I just wanted to see if this thing you took off my account 6 months ago was still off my account. And you're like, what?
That's essential.
Yeah, I'm like, you came into this?
That's a phone call.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
an online.
Yeah, I have 3 signs taped up across the entire front of the office building that's like, do not come in here unless you absolutely have to. And they just ignore them. So at least that's been in my experience.
So how many people love dealing with the general public in jobs where they do that? Yeah.
I get
part
that
of
people
what I've done. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
I get that people have cabin fever. I get it. I have cabin fever too. I'm stuck in a house that's not my own, but I'm still stuck in it. But there are these wonderful things attached to the very bottom of your legs called your feet. And they can walk you out of your front door, and they can walk you to various places in your neighborhood. And that's the kind of getting outside that doesn't endanger anybody else. So do that one.
Yeah, my wife was out for a walk earlier today, and she said the greenways here in Cary are fairly busy. It's a very warm day out there. Most people maintaining some form of social distance, but she saw some groups of people that were probably not family. I guess I'm not sure why family gets excluded from social distancing, because if somebody goes out, they could get infected and come back, and if you don't maintain a distance, you're going to infect the whole family. But I guess that's one of those things that's a little bit too hard to do. Have you guys seen?
I can't maintain distance from my kids. Like, that's not going to happen at night. There's just no way. So I see why they say, basically, if you live with somebody, all bets are off for that particular. Anybody who lives inside your household, you're fine.
Yeah, but you are.
Someone to social distance my children, if that's possible. But I have no choice either.
Well, my brother-in-law is actually a doctor, and he is showering at work before he leaves. He brings clothes in a bag that he then brings home and changes immediately out of, and takes another shower at home, because he does have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and his wife, my sister, who he is trying very hard not to bring anything home from the hospital to. So, yeah, there's social distancing from family, but there's also the people who can't, taking a lot of really extreme measures right now that are really wonderful to hear about.
Yep. Social distance and decontaminate. If you have to leave the house, decontaminate upon reentry, or even in the yard before you get in. There's a huge movement in my area which basically says, listen, we're going to do away with caring about public nudity right now, because the people are getting naked so that they don't bring their contaminated clothes in the house. And they're getting naked on the lawn so that they don't bring their contaminated clothes in the house. And we're just going to look away.
That may be one of the more extreme examples that I've heard, but it sounds smart. My brother works at a radio station. He's got to go in and do the morning show. And he says he keeps his change of clothes in the garage. He's up north where it's still cold. And so he's just freezing until he gets warmed up back inside after he's changed his clothes from getting back from work. Have you guys seen, I mean, we've all seen the news stories, and now it's getting a little bit old, of the groups at beaches at spring break down in Florida.
Yes.
Ignoring this
stuff. I cannot believe
Y'all
that stuff.
killing my dad. Stop it.
Yeah. Have you seen locally examples of people that are not following any of these guidelines?
Yeah, my Facebook. No.
Well, I haven't really been out in about 2 weeks, so I haven't been witnessing it myself. I do go for a walk pretty much every day, but I'm walking in the middle of the road, and it's nice having less traffic around, so it's safer to walk in the middle of the road. But I don't see anybody. Like, I'm out, and there's nothing.
Because everybody's gone to the greenways. Nobody wants to walk on sidewalks or in their own neighborhood.
Yeah. Seeing a lot of folks out in the greenways and biking and all that.
It's a bad combination. We've had incredible weather the last week, and people are home. And I think for a lot of people, there's a silent killer out there, and people, unless it's top of mind, like Heather's brother-in-law or so many of the people that we deal with on a daily basis, it doesn't feel all that different to a lot of people, I think.
Well, one of our household members is in the high-risk population, and so we decided more than 2 weeks ago, it was Thursday night 2 weeks ago, that we were done going out doing things. We're shutting everything down because schools hadn't been canceled yet, but we weren't taking risks. We're not bringing it home to anybody in the house, so we stopped everything.
Yeah, technically I fit in the high-risk population. I'm 70. I know I don't look it. And I have asthma, so I have respiratory problems, and I'm old, and that qualifies me. And I just finished going through a round of chemotherapy, which fortunately is very successful. So my immune system is theoretically back. The doctor says at this time, more than 30 days out, the immune system is back up to full strength. But I'm still old. And as I was talking to my wife about, do we want to go visit some friends, some very good friends that we see every Friday night? We can't go to a restaurant like we usually do, but maybe we could grab something and just visit at their house. They are in one of those jobs that they still have to go into work and be near other people. And as I put it, that, for me, it's a potential death sentence if I catch it. I don't know for sure. I've been paying careful attention to the scientific stories about COVID-19, and apparently it affects people differently. And that's why we have a lot of people with very mild symptoms and a few people with very serious symptoms and even fatal symptoms because of where it lands in the body. It could be upper respiratory and not bother you very much, or it could get deep in the lungs and kill you. That's what I've been reading from, I think, reputable scientific publications, and don't know which way it would affect me, but it could happen either way. But my body is predisposed to not liking having anything happen in my lungs that isn't absolutely normal. If I get a cold or a flu, I can't breathe for a month. So yeah, it's a potential death sentence. And I'm sitting here thinking that doesn't sit at the top of mind all the time. I'm not freaking out about it. I'm not feeling anxious. I'm just aware of it. Do you guys feel a high level of anxiety, or is it like me, just kind of, you're aware?
It depends on the moment, honestly. There are times that I am freaking out and kind of paranoid about everything, but then I got to get back into either making dinner or cooking or cleaning or whatever it is, and the household kind of moves in that same pattern that we all kind of cycle in and out of panic, and we just have to suffer through this and let it go.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. I am low risk. I am young. I am healthy. I've never smoked. I've never had asthma. My blood pressure is fine. All the things that make me incredibly low risk. But when I was in my early teens, I survived a disease that had as part of its pathophysiology a cytokine storm, which is the way that this one particularly kills. And I still, to this day, live in fear of ever having to struggle for air like that ever again. And so I'm not anxious, but I would very much rather not have to go down that route again, no matter the fact that I will survive statistically. It's not fun, y'all.
And again, your job is as a nanny, which means you are going into people's homes and interacting with their kids. Still, you'll be doing that tomorrow, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Showing up to work, same as usual. which means leaving my home, going to their home, and caring for their children in their home, and then leave their home, go back to my home. I've tried to close my exposure circle as much as humanly possible. The people I live with do not leave the home on this end, and the family that I care for do not leave the home on their end.
Just one family that you're involved with? Okay.
Yeah, nannies are domestic employees, so we work for the families we serve, and we don't hop around to multiple families.
Okay, so that helps some. You know them. You know how reliable they are when they tell you that they are not putting themselves at risk and not putting you at risk, but it's still, and I don't know whether they have to go out and leave the home or go out and work someplace, but it is one step farther than those of us that can literally stay home all the time. Anybody else want to cop to an anxiety level?
It's interesting, and Jen, we have a nanny because my wife and I both work full-time jobs. I travel a lot, and week before last, we asked our nanny to come move in with us until this is all over, and she agreed because we thought the risk exposure of her. She's wonderful. There's no concerns, but she has roommates, and we were a little concerned that there would be some transmission there. For me, the anxiety goes in kind of fits and starts. I try to stay away from the news at all points. I'll try to catch up maybe once a day and see what's going on. But then this morning, we have good friends who live in France, and their 7-year-old came down with a severe case of it. And she had all of those telltale signs, the dry cough, the fever for 8 days. And so this whole notion that children aren't susceptible, that's where my anxiety really goes to the roof. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I'm like you, Jen, I'm fairly young and healthy, but if something were to happen to my kids, that's where my anxiety goes to the roof.
Speaking as the daughter of a mathematician, my mom and I were having an interesting conversation about the connection points. It's kind of like the 6 ways to Kevin Bacon, but in mathematical terms. I haven't seen anybody post like on my Facebook or any of my friends that I've been keeping in touch with say that they have contracted it. But I know some of them who know someone directly who has. So this hasn't touched my life personally, but it certainly could. And I think the mathematical equations show that eventually everybody in this country is going to know someone who has it or had it or possibly died from it. And oddly, that gives me kind of a sense of relief of the inevitability of it. And I pray that it will not be that I know someone that died of it, but I'm going to know somebody who has it eventually, because that's where this is headed. And I just wanted to say something about kids. I've been doing a lot of research on it because I have kids, not only mine, but all the kids that I've worked with. It's not that kids are not getting this. It's that the percentage of kids that are dying from this is practically zero. It's not quite zero, but it's practically zero. I think it was 98 or 99% of the kids that get this get such a mild case that you can't even notice it. And obviously there are exceptions. And I hope that your friend's child, gets better quickly. But in terms of my own anxiety for my kids, all of my kids, it's that if they're going to get it, they're probably going to be okay. And that has a certain measure of comfort for me, because I love all of the kids that I've worked with, and there have been so many of them. Nanny Jen and I actually kind of switched jobs. I was a nanny for 15 years before I went to school to become a teacher. So there's lots of kids out there that I'm worried about. But I'm fairly certain they're going to be okay. And the other people that I know, I just have to wait and see. So I'm not in a constant level of anxiety about it, because to me, the mathematics of it is beautiful and gives me a false sense of comfort, I guess, that it's going to happen and I can't stop it. And so worrying about it is a waste of my energy.
Okay.
Talking about the anxiety in kids, we've been talking to our kids a lot about, this is going to be one of those moments that everybody who you're in class with now is going to know what they were doing, what was going on, kind of this is an indelible marker in your memory. You're all going to remember this, and you're going to have stories to tell about the time that you were out of school for a couple of months and how that happened and how that went. And we're trying to normalize things as much as possible so they don't worry excessively. That, you know, we're doing what we can, we're taking the safe and measured approaches to all these things. You guys don't need to freak out about it. We'll handle the freaking out for you.
So, Raul,
Yep.
you have known people at your company have had it, and you have a friend in France. Does anybody know anyone directly, you know, first and second party, who has it or has had it? Go ahead, Jen.
I'm in I was in an exposure chain. A link prior to me tested negative, so now I'm not. But I got that call that says, hey, you know, this person who I was in contact with was in contact with that person. So I was in an exposure chain where I had close contact with my mother. I was closer than 6 feet away from her. She was closer than 6 feet away from one of her friends, and that friend was closer than 6 feet away from her boss. And the boss tested positive because she had been on one of those cruise ships where almost everybody had gotten it. The then employee, the friend of my mom, tested negative, and so therefore I am negative. But it was a moment.
Yeah. Anybody else have something close?
I have a friend in Holly Springs who has tested positive, but we haven't seen her and her family in at least a month in person. So that's not a direct exposure to us.
Okay. And not just exposure necessarily, but just people you know, just, you know, close contacts of people that you know who have come down with. Because I don't know, I was going to say most of us don't know anyone personally who has got it, but I think I may be wrong about that.
I actually have a friend from a fellowship that I do, writing a poetry fellowship that I do at the end of the year, who's in New York City, and she just got over the 8 to 9 days of fever, and part of it, and finally it was able to get tested positive. It's good to see that she's on the mend, but it's, you know, I mean, stuff like that, it's scary, right? You know, you've got this disease that we have best guesses to know how it works, but it's you know, changing and all that. But you know, I'm glad she's doing well, because she had a hard year,
Yeah.
and then this on top of it. You know,
Have you, or are you planning on writing a poem about this?
I mean, possibly. It's funny. Well, not funny, but a lot of my stuff deals with like isolation anyway, because of my background being biracial, and how different cultures will like accept you and not accept you, and a lot of deals with a lot of longing. So it's like, you know, I was, you know, oh my God, but I was like, finally, people actually understand the stuff. But yeah, I mean, probably it'll something might come out. I know a lot of my poet friends, you know, it's, you know, they're older, and, you know, the only way to put it, but they're older and white, and their world experience is substantially different. You know, not that there's anything wrong with it. It's different people have lived differently, and their lives are unique and based on that. And you mentioned the anxiety earlier, and it's interesting to see how, you know, people develop when the world finally becomes hostile to them. As a, you know, Black man in the South, you know, the world being hostile to me isn't something that's new, right? And, you know, now it's like, you know, it's interesting that's like now everybody sort of can feel that, you know, hostility. A minority might feel going into certain parts of South Carolina, or, you know, having to make sure that if they travel, because I do a lot of traveling, like I'll cover like conventions and stuff. And if they're in the South, there are certain travel precautions that, going through, rural parts of Georgia or South Carolina, you got to make sure you have that. And now seeing how the rest of the world reacts to what's it like when there are unknown forces in the world that just may want you dead,
Yeah. And if those things have impressed themselves on us, then on the minority populations, it's just gotten that much worse, I would imagine. From my perspective as an old white man, living in privilege like crazy, it's got to be harder.
Yeah, like it's I've been having conversations with my district manager about, because of the misdemeanor, I work in the storage place I work is in Morrisville, and they actually have a curfew of 5. And I'm like, hey, if you want, I need actual paperwork to show to law enforcement, which, that's always not a fun interaction anyway. Especially since you drive a beater and the windows don't work. And it's just been like back and forth. Oh, we're essential. Just show them this, show them this really long letter. And, and it's like, it's like, oh, this is a situation that's going to be increasing possible negative outcomes and interactions, with law enforcement, that kind of stuff. Because I'm not going to get in a fight and a cop over, whether or not to keep the business that I work for open. It's not, to me personally, that's not worth it. Some of my coworkers might be a little bit more apt to do that, but, it's there's a lot more of that stuff, and seeing how a lot of these businesses that are now deeming themselves essential are, it's disproportionately kind of, overexposing with inadequate protection to a lot of, poor minority folks and poor people in general. And, yeah, it's tougher when you're poor, and apparently when a pandemic comes around, it's like, hey, you guys are going to be the first to go because you don't have, property and, or hadn't have the access to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, first to lose jobs, income, support.
We need you to survive. You're essential. Please risk your life for us. But oh, hey, by the way, we'll be sitting here.
Yeah.
Profiting off of the fruits of your life and your health.
Yeah.
That letter I'm supposed to show to law enforcement is a paragraph and a half about how much money the overall company I work for would be making. Before it's like, oh, we're an essential business.
Whoa.
And it's like, okay, yeah, this is great. Go out and die for our money. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
GameStop was in the news of trying to call themselves essential and putting their employees at risk and all kinds of stuff, and that was just really awful to read those bits of stories. And
you're talking about GameStop, the gaming store.
Their press has been quite poor leading up into this. Yeah, and then everything that came out of this, I do think we have to look at vulnerable in a new light. We have such a horrible homeless crisis throughout this country. We have a whole slew of workers in the $14 to $17 an hour range who just don't make enough money to pay rent, to pay anything, have food on the table. So one of the bright spots, if there is one, is that we have started to value our service industry the way that we should have always valued our service industry. We started valuing teachers because all of us now are full-time. Well, many of us are trying to look at the bright side of things. I think, a lot of us are at home trying to teach our kids. We're trying to do our jobs. We're trying to do all the things that so many people have been able to do for us that we have taken for granted. And I think that's one of the things that we're always preaching to our kids, is that you should have gratitude. And I think that, Heather, you being a kindergarten teacher, I can't imagine our children's lives without their kindergarten teacher. I mean, you guys are essential. So thank you.
What's funny is that most other teachers tell me I'm crazy too. A lot of
just-
people cannot believe that. And every interview I went to, I'm like, please let me teach kindergarten. Please let me teach kindergarten. I was a nanny. I know what to do with a room full of 5-year-olds. I'll be fine. Don't throw me in with the older kids. I don't know how to handle them. And even other teachers are like, bless you, we would never be able to do that. So it is interesting. And I've always been fascinated by how this, as a nanny, I got a lot of that too. Like, oh, I could never do that. It's like, well, I could never do your job either. This is what I love to do. It's my passion. And fortunately, I'm good at it. But I'd never be able to run a light rail system because I know nothing about it. It would probably drive me insane. So I think one of the things we're realizing is that there are people who are good at certain things, and it's good to appreciate them, even if you would not be able to do it yourself.
Agreed.
So Heather,
What I would like to see is that I hear these words of appreciation and I believe you, because you have given plenty of evidence for how you appreciate and have shown gratitude. But the rest of the world, all I'm seeing is you guys are copying and pasting memes about it. And I don't believe a word that y'all are copying and pasting on your social medias until you stay your asses at home. That's how you show us thanks, is you keep us alive, stay your ass at home.
Yeah, I've got a friend who works.
Mechanism, though. Sorry, Brendan, go.
I've got a friend who works in the labor and delivery unit in Chapel Hill, and she's a nurse, and she's awesome, but she is what I consider an essential employee. She should be leaving her house. Nobody else should. Everybody else should be home. And I have a lot of respect for everybody who is out supporting and making all this stuff work, and I'm doing everything I can to not interact with anybody, to lessen everything that I can, because that's my job here.
yeah, that's what I'm hearing from the healthcare profession and the other essential professions is stay home so we can go to work and minimize the risk.
Yeah. You want to say thanks, you're grateful, you appreciate us, stay home. That is all we want. And if you try and give us something we don't want, we don't care. We don't want that.
Yeah. So, Heather, I wanted to ask you about teaching in the new environment and what is going to start to happen. The other guest that I was going to have is an elementary school teacher, a little bit older, and is going to do online teaching. And one of the things that she had posted, the reason it caught my attention, she posted on Facebook was, please give teachers some slack as they wade into this new environment, because it is going to be rough. Attempting to teach kids online, not something we've been doing at the high school and elementary school level. So we're going to be winging it. We thrown together what we can as fast as we can. It's not going to work very well. We know it's not going to work very well, and we know that people are going to be unhappy with what they see to begin with. Parents are not going to be real happy. So
Teachers resist to that. We're always unhappy with what we're doing.
and so this is just going to be worse. For one thing, how are you going to deal online with kindergarten? And then just tell me what this is going to be like.
So, there have been a lot of sides to this. There were a bunch of us that were going to read books to our kids over various, Dojo is what Orange County uses as the main communication platform between teachers and parents, but then administrators were worried that we were going to get copyright infringement issues with reading copyrighted material over Dojo, and we're still trying to figure that out.
What's a Dojo?
It is a messaging platform specific to, it's a closed system messaging platform. So we as teachers have a code that means our class, and we send it out to parents and they accept the code, and then they're part of the classroom. And so I can post something that only goes to the kids in my class.
Okay. So
it's have a direct line of communication with me that's more like a messenger service as opposed to an email service.
And they were worried that if you read a copyrighted book, that you're going to violate the copyright?
Yes.
We give an eye roll here.
In the time of online teaching.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are you going to be doing?
Well, so our biggest problem is that we've got kids. So I don't know what other counties did. I can only speak for the school that I'm a part of. I spent all day Friday, the 13th, getting packets of material ready to send home to kids, to parents, stuff for them to do at home. Now, here's the problem. we've got kids that have already finished that entire package that was supposed to last for 3 weeks. And we have kids that haven't touched it. And that is no comment on any parent, because I'm also a parent and I was a nanny and I get it. Some kids like doing schoolwork. Some kids, it's like pulling teeth. Even in the classroom, it is a pain to get these kids to sit down and focus. I do not blame their parents for not having done the material. The problem is, if I then put out more material, that puts those kids who either do not have access to support at home or are not willing to put in the effort at home, they get further and further behind. And we're still trying to figure out how to make that work. Orange County had a phone system that called every parent of every student of every Orange County school. And it was a 2-question survey. Do you have access to internet in your home reliably? Actually, 2 questions. I'm sorry. Do you have internet? Do you have some kind of tablet device that they could do some kind of, video that they could watch or whatever? And would you prefer to receive material in printed form or digital form? So we're trying to accommodate families that don't have access to or are not comfortable using the digital format. We're going to print stuff out. It will be left in the front office for parents to come pick up. And we're trying to do our best to help every student learn as much as they can during this time. And it's been interesting because there's some debate over whether it's worth going back to school for 1 month at the end of the year. My personal opinion is yes, because we can get a whole lot of information about where kids are that'll help us decide how to best help them next year. Otherwise, you're sacrificing the first semester or the first month of our next school year to trying to figure out where kids are and possibly having to shuffle them between classrooms. And it's better to have some information in the spring for planning purposes, because we're not going to fault you if you couldn't get the schoolwork done with your kids. But in order for us to help your kids, we need to know where they are and what they have or have not learned during this at-home time, so that we're not either reteaching stuff that doesn't need to be retaught or trying to teach stuff and they have a big hole in their educational timeline from this time.
So, Brendan and Raul, you guys both have kids, right?
Yep.
And Jen, did you have kids?
Nope, none that I'm not paid to watch.
You have lots of kids, just none of your own. So Brendan,
the Wake County schools are trying to figure out, similar to what you guys are going through right now, in terms of who has access to what are we going to try to get done. I think they're using Zoom for a lot of things initially, just for the pre-education stuff. Like before we actually get into resuming an educational curriculum, they're trying to keep the social side of things kind of connected and have the kids be able to talk to their friends a little bit and kind of understand things in that sense. But we're still on basically nothing until after spring break is what I remember the last emails that came out said. And I'm worried that with the health crisis, the health stuff going on, that we're not going to be able to go back to school for the last month at all. It's just not going to be a reality. And that worries me.
Yeah, we're in kind of the same boat, obviously, with Wake County schools. The one unique characteristic is my kids are both in Montessori. So Montessori is all very practical life, a lot of socializing, a lot of self-learning. It's not a lot of teacher to student type of communication. So it's been a little difficult. I didn't go through Montessori. My wife didn't go through Montessori, so we don't really know how exactly that's practiced. So we're doing our best with helping the kids still do their practical life. We do science experiments during the day. My kitchen is a disaster most afternoons, but I'm with you, Brendan. I don't see how. I think they said, what was it, May 15th was the day that schools are closed to?
Something like that.
Yeah, and I think our kids are out the first week of June. So for us, it's not even a month. It's more like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks at the most, minus Memorial Day.
Are you guys getting information from school administration?
I'm getting a lot actually that's coming in. The teachers are sending out a lot of stuff trying to keep us informed. The principals have been sending out information packets trying to get a sense of what our needs are, how they can help us and how we can help them. There was a huge push initially in terms of there's a huge number of kids that don't have food insecurity, and they rely on the public school system to eat. And how do we coordinate those programs, and how do we make sure that the most vulnerable parts of our society don't really fall apart on all of this? And it's heartbreaking, but that's the reality of it. So how do we move forward? How do we get this? How do we do the least amount of damage to especially the people who can't afford it, while also trying to continue the academic mission? And I don't have answers, but I'm trying to follow along the best I can.
If I can jump in for a quick bit of advocacy, I have a friend who's involved in public food program in Chatham County, and I believe with the public schools, but don't quote me on that because I don't want to get her in trouble if it's not. But she said that one of the things that the public can really do to help is the way the governor's order was written. Her food program is questionable as to whether it can continue to push out food to the at-risk children. So if you could write to your city attorneys, county attorneys, the governor's office, just to get that green lit, that would be very helpful.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads me on to the next thing I wanted to ask you guys about. What are you guys doing for food?
Primarily, we are eating out of the house. We are eating in the house. We are eating through the pantry, eating through the freezer, trying to do what we can for longer term meal planning and meal shopping, so we don't have to go out as much. I've done we had Bond Brothers do the beer delivery once, and that was interesting, but it's really pricey to do beer delivery that way, and we're not really into takeout. So we're just cooking more at home.
Does that mean you're going to the grocery store to restock those pantries, or did you have a good supply to begin with?
We had a reasonable supply to begin with, and we're utilizing the Harris Teeter Express lane as much as we can to avoid the number of times we have to actually go into the store and either expose ourselves or expose cashiers to any more contact. So it's extraordinarily inconvenient, but that's what it is. So about once a week we get more groceries in.
So you that's a drive up in front of the store, and then they come out and put it in the back of your car.
Yep, and you pay online, so you're not even dealing with running a card or anything there. You pop the car, and they put stuff in.
Okay, Jen, you got food right with you there.
I've got my food. I'm eating my breakfast. I woke up late. I'm cooking for myself out of dried stores, and I'm having to go to the grocery store once a week because my dried stores have been off the shelf. So I have food allergies, so I have to eat only specific items, and they got wiped out, and I keep popping in once a week to hope that they're back.
Okay, so
if you can eat canned beans and not dried beans, please pick up the cans and not the dried ones, because those of us who can't have that sodium really need the dried.
Hoarding has caused a problem in a lot of different ways for people who need things and can't get them because other people have hoarded them. Donald, I saw you roll your head back when I mentioned food.
Yeah, so grocery shop. So I moved into my new apartment about a month and a half ago. So I've been trying to get stuff slowly for the apartment, and being a site manager, I don't make the big bucks. Generally grocery shopping is usually around payday, and with all the hoarding. My last couple of paydays, or my last payday rather, was right during that nice peak of hoarding. So I generally, as I said, I literally I was doing Walmart pickup for months before this. Because of this, I haven't been able to do that. I had to go into the stores to buy stuff, and everything was gone. I'm Catholic and I practice Lent, and whatever.
So you gave up everything. You gave up everything for Lent.
Yeah, apparently. So my diet for the first 2 weeks that was about my diet for the last 3 4 weeks has literally been the only things I can find in the grocery store. So it's been pot pies and pizza rolls, and I'm living in some Twilight world twisted dimension where my meal plan has been planned by a really hyperactive 8-year-old. And
I was going to say, it sounds good to me.
Oh God!
Add dinosaur chicken nuggets and you've nailed it.
Yeah, pretty much. They're all gone.
Those are great. Don't sleep on dino nuggets.
Heather, what's your eating plan?
I actually have gone to the grocery store a couple of times. I am lucky as a single parent that I live with my mom, and so we have been having an adult go out and do the shopping, not taking the kids along for obvious reasons. And neither of us is big on meal planning, so we tend to go to the store and be like, oh, that looks good, let's buy that, which makes the online shopping a little bit more difficult. But we are talking about moving towards that to limit our exposures. And my mom is over 65, so she can go during that early time that a lot of stores offer. We kind of feel like maybe it's a false sense of security, but we feel like that's safer. So she's been doing a lot of that. But we actually doing some takeout in an effort to support our local restaurants, because Hillsborough and, well, there's one restaurant in Upland and Mebane all have some really great, genuine, actual, like, family-owned restaurants that don't have any kind of corporate can help bail them out umbrella. And so we're trying to support those businesses just to kind of do our part. We are lucky that our income has not been affected by this. My mom, as a retiree, is living off what she already had, and teachers are still getting paid, and I have some Social Security money coming in from my late husband. So we're really lucky, and we're trying to share that fortune around by supporting the businesses that we can in our local area as much as possible. So we are actually maybe eating out more than we usually do. We can look at that.
Taking out, not eating out.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Getting takeout.
Yeah, I'd love to eat out again. So, Rule, what about you?
So we're pretty good. We went grocery shopping right before everything kind of shut down about a week and a half ago, and so lots of pasta, dry goods, things like that, canned beans, and so frozen vegetables, and we have been getting Lowe's Foods delivery about once a week. They're fantastic. But for all meat and produce, we go to Fickle Creek Farms, which is out there in Eflin. And they come to Morrisville once a Saturday, every Saturday, and they bring fresh meat, fresh cheese, and some fresh produce. Obviously, practicing social distancing, picking it up, putting it in the car, and then just heading back home. So it's
sort of a farmer's market, sort of a farmer's market thing they're doing.
Yeah, they used to. It used to be a much bigger farmer's market, but so I went there yesterday, first time out in a week and a half, to pick up some meats and some dairy stuff, and there was 2 people. Yeah. It was good, I guess, if you can think about it.
Reminds me, I have not heard whether the Wake County Farmers Market is open or not. I can imagine
the one at the state farmers market area. Yeah, that one's open.
It is open.
Please practice social distancing. But yes,
it's considered essential, so they got an exemption.
Yeah, the last time I was there, social distancing would have been impossible. It was shoulder to shoulder on a weekend.
Please pay digitally if you go, so that you don't have to handle cash, and that can't be a disease vector.
So my wife is a shopaholic, sort of. I don't think she'd describe herself that way, but I would say she likes making the rounds, and she's cut back on that, but she'll still see the stores. We thought we would be doing takeout more than we have been, but we still do some. And because we want to support the restaurants that we had dined in on usually once a week, so we'll try to do still that much takeout. But that's something that's top of mind. How are they practicing things? Are they handing you things in a little cart so they don't have to handle them? And of course, what you never know in a restaurant is what's going on behind the scenes. So people tell me. Go ahead.
I happen to have talked to a subject matter expert. I can't remember their exact credentials, but they do food safety, disease, ecology kind of stuff. And they pointed out that the acetic acid in your stomach acid is going to get rid of any virus that you might take in, on food. So what's going on in the kitchen, even if somebody coughs or sneezes in your soup, as soon as that hits your tummy, you're good.
Yeah. So it'd be handling the packaging. Yeah. That'd be the concern. And I've heard people go to the extreme of saying, well, if you're getting a delivery, let it sit out there for 48 hours. Obviously not if it's food, but I'm not doing that, but I did find myself wiping down some stuff I got in from Amazon the other day.
That's kind of what we're doing. Anything that gets delivered to our front porch, if it's cardboard, we'll take it out of the cardboard right there on the front porch, wipe down anything that's plastic on the inside. But generally speaking, we'll clean everything in the porch before we bring it into the house. And then we have a section of our counter in our kitchen. We don't have a huge kitchen, but that's where we just unload any groceries, and we'll put them into food safe containers, which is something we used to do anyway because cereal goes bad and things like that.
So I guess go ahead.
We use the carport to open packages and stuff that come into the house, and so we try to do it because that's where we have like the recycling and the trash bin off to the side of the house, so we can open stuff up and discard packaging and whatever else we have to discard, and then we bring it inside and then sanitize ourselves and whatever else we need to do it that way. But this way, we're not bringing something that's been through the shipping system directly into the house if we can avoid it.
So that phrase, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not trying to kill you.
Exactly.
That's
no, things are trying to kill you.
They are trying to kill you. Yes, it's all trying to kill you.
They are. What my brother-in-law reminded me the last time I asked him about it is getting it on your hands is not what's going to kill you. It's then touching your face.
Yep.
It's getting it on something, getting it on your hands and then touching your face. So opening your mail, opening your packages, discarding everything, that's absolutely the right way to go. But the biggest step is to then wash your hands after you have done it. As long as you do that, something on you're okay. So all of this stuff about what about the bread inside the package? It's like, no, that's not how this is being transmitted. If you get it on your hands and you wash your hands, you're fine. So even if someone in the store that packed up your groceries before putting it in your cart may have had it and gotten it on the bag, as long as you take it out of the bag and then wash your hands, you're okay.
And does everybody know why washing your hands works? Like the real why of it? Would you like me to? This is what I did. I taught high school science, and this is a basic high school science concept. Would you like me to give everybody a quick rundown?
I've read about it. It's fascinating.
Part of the outer structure of so a virus is made up of proteins. Those are those little pokey corona things. A fat layer, which is the ball, and then the RNA is inside the ball. And darned if soap doesn't dissolve fat. Ta-da, no more virus.
Yep.
So if I want to lose a whole bunch of weight, just douse myself in soap.
Well, eating soap will give you diarrhea, so it'll be an
maybe.
instant weight loss. But that's why people are saying wash your hands. It's not some sort of what was it? It's opiate of the masses. It's actually got a purpose. It's going to literally break this virus apart.
Honestly, if there's one good thing that comes out of this whole ridiculous thing is people's general hygiene, I think, is going to be improved. And my children have finally learned to wash their hands consistently and regularly, and I'm enjoying that part of it.
In kindergarten, but now adults are learning how to do it too. But I have to go. Say hi.
Hi, buddy.
Hey.
Hi, buddy.
Look at that brood.
We've used this as also an excuse for them to brush their teeth. We told them
hang on just a second.
Brushing your teeth also stops the coronavirus. So now they're scared to death if they don't brush their teeth.
Okay, so Heather said she's got to go. So thank you very much for joining us, Heather, at the very last minute. And,
Thank you.
and bringing us your expertise on education. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye, Heather.
Let you go.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom. So I have a little rant about soap, and that is that people are sort of addicted to antibacterial soap, and that's a waste.
It doesn't dissolve fat any better than regular soap.
This is a virus, not bacteria.
Not a bacterium, so you just wasting money. But you go ahead. You waste your money. You waste your money by sending it to me, and I'll tell you that you have done good things.
Yep. Now, I don't know whether this part of antibacterial soap is a problem or not, but if it's killing bacteria, what that's going to do eventually is create more soap-resistant bacteria.
Yes.
So
that's why
like antibiotics.
If you feel the need to waste money, you can feel the need to waste money right here.
Yeah, but it's also dangerous. Antibiotics are one of the reasons why these bacteria that we have are evolving and adapting and becoming super bugs. And antibacterial is a big movement about that.
Okay. Got a couple more things on the list here to go through. Where do you guys get your news? Where do you find out what's going on? We'll start with Donald.
So basically just trusted news sources.
Local
NPR,
TV.
NPR. I just started getting updates from the NNO because they made a lot of their coronavirus stuff more free. They've made it free.
Taking down their paywall for a lot of these stories.
Yeah.
I actually send them $150 a year to get their stuff because they're hurting.
Good journalism requires money.
Yep. Yeah. No, my aunt actually still subscribes to the NNO and probably has like 90 years of newspapers and cardboard boxes in storage. So that's been a thing. I'll call my mom because my mom and my aunt live together. She's like, "Oh yeah, should we go out there? We might end up cutting it because they're only down to a Wednesday and a Sunday paper." I'm like, all right, man. But yeah.
Now I know I'm very old. I'm not older than dirt, but when I was born, dirt was in beta. But I have transitioned to the digital version of the NNO. I don't pile up papers anymore. It's been a long time. I do like reading the newspaper-ish edition that they make available as a PDF. But I'll still go to the website for current stuff because that stuff's going to be a day old. Jen, where do you find out things?
So in order to teach high school science in North Carolina, you have to be a subject matter expert, which means that I have a college degree in a hard science, which means that I went to college with a bunch of other people who've got college degrees in hard sciences. And now they're all epidemiologists, disease ecologists, emergency room doctors, and so on and so forth. The list continues. So I have been getting my information straight from the horse's mouth of the subject matter experts and using my knowledge from college of how to read the primary sources.
And so you connected me with Heather instead.
Yeah, well, you wanted a teacher. I brought you a teacher.
That was good. That was good. All right, Raul, how do you find out what's going on?
So sticking to WRAL.com, it's been pretty good. Watching, we don't really watch a lot of TV or watch a lot of news, but all the sources that everyone out here has already mentioned. The other one I'd mention is Jeff Jackson. He's a state senator. Following him on Twitter, following him on Reddit. He has been a very, very grounded and reasonable voice from the government side of this. It has been doing a phenomenal job communicating. Obviously, we're not his constituents because we're in Wake, but he's done a really good job just representing North Carolina as a whole. I feel like the news that he's been giving has been honest, straightforward, and very, very, very informative.
If he doesn't run for a higher office, I will eat my hat. And if he doesn't get elected to that higher office.
What area does he represent?
It's MEC.
Okay, so a long way out of town.
Yeah.
But you expect bigger things from him sometime soon.
Yeah.
Okay, Brendan, what's your news source?
So I have a journalism undergraduate degree from a long time ago. So I learned to read the news critically a long time ago, and that's been very helpful to me. But my primary sources at this point are my father, who has a PhD in public health and epidemiology. So he likes to send me things and to talk about stuff. And then Reddit. So I use that to filter the incoming from kind of the global's perspective and try to pick out the nuggets of useful truth. But I get overwhelmed pretty quickly with the anxiety levels on stuff. So I try to limit to about 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, and not dwell on it too much. I don't need to have a lot of numbers, just what the new science is, what's coming out of the research facilities, and kind of watching the medical system fail.
So nobody here's a cable news junkie but me.
Sorry.
I'm a cord never, so.
A cord never?
Yep. So the cord cutters are the people who ditched cable But I'm a cord never. I never had cable to ditch, so I don't really. We have a TV, but it belongs to my housemate.
Okay. I cut the cord, ditched cable a long time ago, but I've acquired a few things since then, like a YouTube TV, which is cable TV light. Plenty of things to watch on there.
When I was little, my father was in the cable TV business, and he got cable for free as part of the perks of being a manager or whatever. And he did not have cable in the house, and he said, "At free, the price is too high." So that's kind of where I come from.
Yeah, I do remember when I had it, I would look across thousands of these channels and say, "What the hell is all this stuff?" And every once in a while, I dip into one and to see what the hell it was, and realize it's nothing I want to watch. But a small handful of things. So that leads to the next question: entertainment. How are you guys keeping yourselves distracted? Has anybody done the first run movie, where they're offering first run movies online? You've watched one?
Yeah.
Raul?
Yeah, we got Onward week before last. Went from the movie theater right to iTunes, and it's a fantastic movie. Highly recommend it. It was $20, so I don't recommend it that much. But
how many people did you gather around to watch?
Well, it's just the 4 people in my house, so we couldn't really do any social distancing if we had more people.
But if you had gone to the theater with all 4 people, then that would have been at least $40.
Oh, it would have been probably more than that because the kids want the popcorn, which is I think $30 by itself. I will say, from an entertainment standpoint, that the thing I miss most is baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan and have been for 30 plus years. I grew up listening to Vince Scully and the Dodgers when I lived in LA, and the 26th was opening day. And I know it doesn't mean a lot, but for me, baseball and sports is really how I connected with a lot of my family, and it's kind of tough not having LeBron on the TV or listening to Dodger games on the radio. That's been, for me, it's been a very stark contrast to what is reality. Any other big sports fans here?
Big March Madness guy. It's the only time, I live and die with the bracket. And
that would have been right now, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
it would have started a
finished.
couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's okay. We can just declare UNC the winner. It'll be fine.
Yeah, probably not this year.
Yeah, that is.
So do the classic games that they're putting on now do anything for anybody?
I mean,
reruns from decades ago.
So I was kind of spoiled with my college basketball fandom. So I grew up in Syracuse. So I'm a big Syracuse guy. The first year I actually followed college basketball was
Carmelo.
Yeah, so that was the year we won. It was 2003. So it was like, that's my first experience. So with these classic games and stuff, I'm like, it's either reminded me of the one time we won, or the other, or the other times we crapped the bed, and or somebody else won. So I'm like, come on, new memories. I want new college basketball memories. They're not hitting the spot for me.
There is so much sports online on ESPN has 40 channels or something. They got to fill it with something. So I guess that's what they got to do.
Ocho.
Yes.
I hate to do this, guys, but I have to take off. So it was good talking to everybody here, and I appreciate having me on as a guest, and I hope to do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll do this in a week or so and see what's been changing, and any of you are welcome to come back, or we'll find some new folks. So thank you very much, Brendan, and we'll carry on for just another minute or so.
Thanks, guys.
Let you drop
Bye.
off. Raul, it might have been your Reddit thread that I was kind of looking through. It was somebody's had a lot of gaming in it. Was that you? Online gaming?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of online gaming. I have it's a way that a lot of my friends who kind of moved apart. We all went to college together. We went to high school together, and people have moved all across the country. And so that's one of the few ways we still connect. But obviously, with young kids, and with as much as I work and I travel, it's been really, really difficult to get any sort of reasonable gaming. And I've been doing a lot of woodworking, actually, which has been kind of cathartic throughout all of this.
You got a little wood shop downstairs or in the garage?
I have an attic with a CNC machine and a router that my wife hates when I use because it's so loud.
I've got a laser cutter, so I understand.
Which one do you have, the Glowforge?
Glowforge, yep.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay, so you do woodworking too, Jen? Ish.
I don't know if we can. I use my Glowforge to engrave tortillas. I put pictures on tortillas. That's sort of my niche.
Okay.
People
That
like
is
it.
rad. I'll tell you right now, that's fantastic.
I've gone to many potlucks where the theme has been like tacos, and I show up with my engraved tortillas with little pictures of tacos, like having a party, and it says taco party on the tortilla, and people love it.
Art you can eat. Donald, do you do gaming?
Yeah, so I own a lot. I'm a physical media junkie, and I actually have been collecting like retro media and retro games now for about 7-8 years. So I've got a ton of them, and it's
So
a lot of games.
that can occupy a lot of time.
Yeah, between that and the poetry collections that my friends have written that I haven't gotten around to reading.
Now, are those games interactive that you can go online and be more or less interacting with other people, or are they solitary?
Some of them, very few. I don't have a lot of I have some games that do that, and I have picked up a couple different systems. Like I picked up an Xbox or last year because the friends that I were playing online, because a lot of them moved to PC, and I have this weird thing where the PC is specifically a tool, not an entertainment device. But I picked that up, so I have a few games, but most of them are just put them in and single player experience.
All right. We don't have any kids here. By kids, I'm talking about late teens, early 20s. So I'm not sure anybody has this experience, but I've been reading about a little bit is how much they miss the nightclub experience, even of what we have in Raleigh, which is not huge, but there is some. Going out and dancing to the music I wouldn't be able to stand listening to for very long.
I've attended some virtual dance parties already.
Okay.
I say I've twice as old as 20s, but I never was a clubber even when I was in my 20s. But yeah, there's this new thing. A lot of the software that allows you to loop your audio back from whatever was playing on your computer to being now a fake microphone is being used so that people can virtually DJ these like Zoom or WebEx conference calls where people just stick their laptop or their phone up on a high shelf and just groove it out. And everybody's listening to the same music in their own individual homes. So people are finding a way. They're finding a way. The only thing you can't do is get drunk off of alcohol you didn't think ahead of time to buy.
Yes.
But you find new alcohol that you haven't had before because you're out of the alcohol you usually drink.
Oh, there have been some very interesting drink combinations made.
Yeah. So I was reading in the paper today that North Carolina does not permit delivery of mixed drinks. It's wine or beer. And if you want anything harder, you go into the ABC store. And if you want a mixed drink, you can mix it yourself. And the governor can't just by fiat, by decree, change that. It's legislature. Legislature's not meeting, so that's not going to change anytime soon. I didn't think ahead about that one, I guess. Has anybody attended any of the online concerts? The musicians that have, since they can't do physical concerts, have been going online. Anybody watched or listened to any of those?
I haven't, but I saw Elton John was going to do a benefit concert sometime next week, and I will throw my money at the screen, as the kids say, to pay for that, because he's going to have just a whole huge lineup. And if it goes to a good cause, it goes to a good cause. And we've done 3 virtual happy hours so far. So we were thinking for that we would do a virtual happy hour and listen to the concert at the same time. Best you can do right now.
Do you see the Rocket Man movie?
I did not see the Rocket Man movie. Not a big, I didn't see the Bohemian Rhapsody movie either. I don't know why. Maybe
Surprisingly, I saw both of those, and I'm not really up on modern, current culture. Although neither one of those, I guess, is particularly current. But
Yeah.
Rocket Man. I'm not a big Elton John fan necessarily, but I really like the movie. I especially like the one scene early on when he's applying for a music school, and he goes for his not maybe an audition, I guess it would be. And the person who was going to give him the audition was playing a classical piece on the piano, and he comes in and she stops, and she says, "Okay, well, play something for me." And he plays the piece that she was playing, and he stops. And she said, "Why'd you stop?" And he said, "Because that's where you stopped, and that's all I know." He learned that from her playing it once, and he played it.
That's
now,
incredible.
whether that's apocryphal or whether it's true, I'm not sure, but they put it in the movie. Pretty amazing. Anybody else catch a concert, or do you even just
I've attended a virtual
one-on-one
house show.
What is that?
Prior to this, occasionally musicians who maybe didn't have quite the pull of Elton John, so couldn't get the sold out arenas, would ask people to host them in their living room, and then would sell or would either pass a hat or would sell very cheap tickets to go to said living room and sit and attend a concert there in sort of not ideal acoustics. And that has continued. The musicians who are a little less well-known are continuing to do virtual house shows, thankfully, now from their home studios, which have better acoustics than, some random house somewhere on a tour. And so I've attended a few of those and tossed some money in the hat, and those have been pretty cool.
Where do you find them?
Facebook Live mostly has been where, I'll be scrolling along on Facebook Live, and I'll see that, or scrolling along on Facebook, and all of a sudden it'll pop up that one of my friends is doing a watch party of this Facebook Live house show, and I'm in.
Okay.
I'm an extrovert. I'm social. I like to get out. So this is as close to getting out as I'm going to do. So I'm in.
Yeah. It's interesting how Facebook is so personal, because I get on Facebook a little bit too much, I think, and have never encountered anything like that. So it's, on Facebook, if you show you like something, you're going to get a lot more of it. And they're not going to introduce you to a lot of new things because they're busy telling you what you've already liked. Okay, guys.
Donald, I interrupted you. Did you had something to say?
Oh, I did?
Maybe.
Maybe. No, sorry.
All right. Is anybody else got something that they want to, burning desire, bring up before we wrap things up? 3, 2, 1. Sold to the last bidder. Thank you guys for showing up all off of Reddit, except for Heather, who came in because of Jen, who came in because of Reddit. I guess thank you, Reddit, for giving me the opportunity and not for slapping me down for doing self-promotion. Nobody complained that I went on there and said, I want to do this show, and does anybody want to come play with me? Usually when I talk about doing a show or a show that I've done, I get somebody on Reddit who says, that's self-promotion, you're not allowed to do that. That is not true. You can do self-promotion, you just can't do a lot of it, and the Reddit mods like it if you spend more of your time interacting with other people, not your own stuff. But if you do that, and I do that as much as I can, then once in a while it's okay to say, oh, by the way, look at me. So thank you guys. Appreciate it very much. This has been, if I can push the right buttons, episode number 80, a social episode, March 29th, 2020, from the Triangle Talk Show, The Report from the Hoods, Volume 2. And I always close the show the same way, and you guys have probably never, I don't think you've ever watched any one of the shows ever anyway. You certainly never made it to the end. Let's see if anybody can guess the last word to the way this show signs off. And I got to get back to my control program here so that I can, oh no, I've lost it. We can't end the show because I can't get back to the controls. I don't know where they went.
That's okay. This is a great opportunity for Donald to give us some freeform poetry on the spur of the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
You do a tight-esque sign off.
Yeah. You want to read us a poem before we go, Donald?
Sure. I can. If you give me 1 second, I can find find something.
This will be a first for the Triangle Talk Show.
Yeah, first for me.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of artists just voluntarily pushing out their art to keep us sane and connected and feeling good. So I love it. And I see you artists, and I will continue to support you even after this is all done.
I actually read some poems from a chapbook that I was working on for some friends, or for Facebook, for Facebook friends, I think about a week ago. All right. All right. We'll read.
Trying to figure out the absolute best one.
Yes.
Do you do a lot of poetry reading?
No, so I'm really bad. So I did a MFA program, which was low res. I was one of the youngest people in the program, because generally low res MFAs are geared to folks that are older. I was the only one that had the worst social media presence, and I did not know how to use Instagram or Twitter. And this was 2013, 14. So I'm terrible. I had that fellowship I mentioned earlier. My cabin mates were berating me for not actually sharing more. So, no, I often don't share stuff. Okay, we'll read this poem. This is titled Loving You. In the afterlight of night, in between the flashes from passing bikes, I listened to the dragging footsteps of the drunk couple ahead of me. In the arms of each other, they whispered into one another with the gentle breath of secrets. How it reminded me of you, how in the warmth of burning juniper berries under a falling moon, I told you I hadn't seen my father in 2 decades. Your arms coiled around me like a net, spinning down the rivets of her bolt until our bodies met. He's missing someone wonderful. How I began to sway us back and forth, hoping the rhythm would distract you from thinking of me, to stop myself from loving you.
Gee. I noticed that did not rhyme. Poetry does not have to rhyme.
Oh, yes, that's a that's a whole thing.
And the way you read it, I couldn't discern a meter or but it was not prose. Definitely not prose.
Yeah, I am a free verse lyrical poet.
Okay, so I've got my program back, so I can turn off the streams and end the program. Here is how they end. Anybody come up with a third word? I'll do the first two. Over and
out.
Everybody got it. See you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.